Okay, what the fuck is in here? Alright, first glance, this looks like something. And then there's packaging here. Let's pull this out, whatever this is. Whoa, whoa, what the fuck? Who's this? He's a bee! Oh my god! I am so confused. Oh my god. This is surreal. Oh my god. What is this? Oh my god, there's more shit. There's a shock mount for it. What the fuck? Futuristic pop filter? Holy shit. What the fuck? Yikes. Okay, a disclaimer before we get into the review of this microphone, the King Bee. I was sent this microphone from its creator, from the company that makes it, Neat. I was sent it from them. However, I am not being paid for this review or am contractually obligated in any way to make this video, like, at all. Like, the original email I got said this verbatim. We would love to send you a microphone of your choice and hope that you enjoy the product enough to make a review. And after that email, which was a very pleasant email, thank you for being so upfront and just clear about everything, I followed up on that point saying that I probably wouldn't be able to make a review because I am super busy, but they can go ahead and send it over, and if I'm impressed, then I will probably make a video about it. So I guess you know where I'm going with this. This video is also going to be sort of a spiritual successor to my previous microphone video on the Blue Yeti, which I know a lot of you hate, but it's going to be kind of a spiritual successor to that because I am going to be talking about the Yeti in this video. The King Bee at $100 is around the same price point, and also a fun fact about Neat, the company that makes the Bee line of microphones, was founded by the same guys who founded Blue. That and a lot more about their connection will make a whole hell of a lot more sense as we go through this review. But yeah, that's a neat tidbit. Anyway, you already know that this mic sounds good based on the intro that I just gave, so let's get into some specifics about it and why it sounds good from a person who doesn't know that much about audio technical mumbo jumbo. So the basics about this, the King Bee, is that it is a cardioid condenser microphone that rings in at $100, and also it requires phantom power and has one XLR output at the bottom. Those are the basics. Here's all the like technical mumbo jumbo that I mentioned earlier. I don't know what most of it means. I have a very menial understanding of like frequency response and ohms and shit like that. But if you care about that, it's right here. Some stuff sound good. Some stuff sound bad. Also, while we're on the subject of the technical stuff, I should mention that every mic that I've used in this video has been recorded into my Tascam DR60D Mark II field recorder, except for, obviously, the Blue Yeti, which we'll get to. That was just recorded with its included USB cable into my laptop using Audition. Okay, enough technical stuff. Let's get back to the mic and like what comes in the package and everything. The packaging, by the way, like you saw at the intro of the video, is ridiculous. This mic is just so like premium, like packaged in they're so committed to the bee theme, and I love every bit of it. It's so funny to me, and it's great. Like, they have like 6 microphones that are all bee themed to the T, to the B. This is something that ties into the Blue heritage that Neat has that I mentioned earlier. Blue has always kind of tried to strive for being like a premium brand, a more, you know, we're the good brand. We're gonna upcharge you a little bit, but you'll get like a quality, a good product that can appear on camera and look fine, and not just look like a silver stick that you speak into. Which isn't always necessary for microphones, but it's nice, especially with the case of this and most of Neat's microphones. You're not sacrificing price for that. In the case of Blue and stuff like Apple, a lot of the times there is like an upcharge just based solely on the fact that that is the brand and they're fancy. So you're gonna get what you pay for, but also you're paying a little more than you should, probably. That's not the case here. which is interesting because it's a diverging path with neat and blue there. And I probably should mention that this is their flagship microphone, but again, it's only $100. It comes with all this like packaging and quality material and stuff. For a $100 microphone, that's still pretty crazy. Like, this packaging I would expect out of like a $200 or $300 product, not a $100 product. And like, regardless of that, that's kind of a moot point, because I looked up online, like on the Amazon listing, and it looks like pretty much all of their microphones in this line come with the same packaging, if not like smaller versions of it, or bigger depending on the form factor of the mic. Like, it seems like you pretty much get the same shit across the line, which is crazy to me. It's useless, it's all set dressing, but it's still nice, it's fun. What isn't just set dressing though is the actual included hardware that comes with the King Bee, that being this shock mount, which is really pretty nice high quality. I think it's made of plastic, but it's a nice plastic, and it screws in as you would expect it to. It's obviously not a standard thread, and they had to include it because it is the only way you can get this thing onto a mic stand. But they could have just included like a clip. They didn't have to make it an actual shock mount, which is nice. Shock mounts are good. They also have this form-fitting pop filter, which is also included, and you know, it's pretty close up to the capsule, which kind of defeats the point of a pop filter, but it looks nice. And you know what? Honestly, 90% of the time, pop filters are just there to make a mic setup look more professional and more pretty. Oh, it also comes with this little guy and a carrying case for the mic. This is just their logo in like a vinyl figure, which is adorable and I love it. And the carrying case is nice too. So again, you already know that this mic sounds good, unless I guess you're listening through phone speakers in like a sewer or something. And it is obviously a killer deal. At $100, you get a mic this quality with a shock mount, a pop filter, really pretty inane boxing, a little statue guy, and some packaging for it all, or not packaging, a case. I just said it. Anyway, that's cool, but let's compare it to how some other mics sound. Transition! We're gonna talk about the Blue Yeti now! Okay, so most of you probably already know how I feel about the Blue Yeti. If you don't, basically, I think it's overpriced in the market of USB microphones. I think there are better options that sound better for cheaper and have more modularity, like the ATR 2100, which we'll get to in a minute. But it's still worth comparing to the King Bee, because again, they're sort of in a similar space. And I'm going to talk about a lot about the Blue Yeti again, but I'm going to try and be a little more careful with my words this time so I don't get flamed. All right, King Bee versus Yeti. Here are some clips that I recorded for your judgment. Let's take a listen. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway, because bees don't care what humans think is impossible. Now yes, audio is very subjective, especially depending on your listening environment, whether you're listening through headphones, speakers, whether or not those headphones or speakers are even good to begin with, but I honestly think that the King Bee way outperforms the Yeti in this case, and that's not bias, that's just my opinion. But I think that you can objectively measure that the King Bee has a much lower noise floor, and the range on it is much higher than the Yeti, in my opinion. With like those sh sounds that came through on the Yeti, those were a lot more muddy than they are on the King Bee, in my opinion. And yes, that is probably due to the fact that I am using a pretty high quality field recorder for the King Bee here, which the preamps in that will lower the noise floor on any mic. But I don't have that option with the Yeti, and you might be thinking, hey, because of that, maybe it's not that fair to compare the two. The Yeti is a USB only mic, the King Bee is an XLR only mic, and honestly, I kind of agree. They are in two different markets, however thin the line between those two markets is. A point that I hit on a lot in the infamous Yeti video is that it is not that much more expensive than buying a Yeti itself to buy like an actual dedicated XLR mic with a cheap audio interface that will convert XLR to USB for like 30 to 50 bucks. And at the King Bee's $100 price point, that's not that much more than a Yeti. And while yes, getting an audio interface like that for around $30 to $50 at that lower price point, you are going to see a higher noise floor than something like a field recorder or a higher end mixer. It's still worth it, in my opinion, the clarity and the range differences between higher end XLR mics than the Yeti. But if you're still not satisfied with my reasons for comparing the King Bee to the Blue Yeti, let's talk about Neat's what seems to be their direct competitor to the Yeti, the Beecaster. The Beecaster's got multiple pickup patterns, has a headphone out, and comes in at just a cool $99 on pretty much everywhere I looked online. Those are features that the Yeti has, and that a lot of people praise the Yeti for having, especially that multiple pickup patterns things. So you kind of start to understand why I say that it's a direct competitor to the Yeti. And on top of those features that the Beecaster has, that the Yeti also has, if it's not obvious, the Beecaster is a USB microphone. So yeah, direct competitor here. Also, a quick note on the price. I did notice that on the Amazon page, which is what Neat's official website leads you to when you click, like, where do I buy it? It said that it was 71% off, and that the price is usually $349, which I find really hard to believe. Everywhere else I looked online, it was still selling for 99 bucks, so it didn't look like a weird, like, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, like, crazy sale for some reason. I would put more stock into the markdown just being a marketing tactic than, like, that actually being the MSRP for the mic, because if that mic was $349, that's ridiculous. So I could understand if it was, like, retailed for, like, $130 and it was marked down to $99, because you do see a lot of discounts on Amazon. Pretty much everything is on sale on Amazon a lot of the time. So yeah, there you go. I just figured I would throw that in there, so before you go on Amazon and be like, wait a minute, it's usually $350. It's like, no, it's not. I highly doubt that it is. Alright, so Beecaster versus the Yeti. Before we get into the sound signature of the two, let's talk about what comes in the box of the Blue Yeti versus Neat's Beecaster. The Beecaster comes with a custom fit pop filter, just like the King Bee here, and also is mounted on this pretty cool swivel arm that has all the rotation and swivel that you need. Over on the Yeti side, all you get is the USB cable to connect it and the stand that it comes attached to, which does not let you swivel to your heart's desire. You can just kind of tilt it. It doesn't even have height adjust, which I know I mentioned in my previous Yeti video, but that just blows my mind that, like, if you're gonna have a stand, include height adjustment. That's not everybody's the same height. So for those unaware, the Blue Yeti's MSRP is $130. That is already $30 more than the King Bee and the Beecaster, which both come with extra hardware and probably nicer packaging than the Blue Yeti. And again, packaging, that's inane, who cares? But it does come with hardware. The King Bee comes with the shock mount and the pop filter, and the Beecaster comes with the swivel arm, the base that it's on, and again, a pop filter. So if you want to get a comparable setup to the Beecaster or the King Bee with the Blue Yeti, you would have to buy those things separately. And yes, a lot of these things are on sale, and you can get them for pretty cheap third party, but the lowest I've seen the Blue Yeti sell for on Amazon is $90, and if you, for example, if you buy like a shock mount for the Yeti and a swivel arm for it, that's probably going to run you another $30, which just brings the price back up to $120, which again is $20 more than the King Bee and the Beecaster. And to be fair, yes, with the King Bee in particular, you would need a third-party swivel arm or you know, a mic stand of some kind, because it just comes with a shock mount. With the Beecaster, you probably could get away with just using it as itself, like out of the box, because it does come on a pretty tall stand. And I don't know, to be fair to the Blue Yeti here, it does have a standard here. It does, whereas the Beecaster, I don't know that it does. It's on that swivel arm. I don't know if you can remove it from the swivel arm. I don't have one, so I can't test that. The King Bee, that's not really a problem because it comes with a shock mount that has the universal thread on it, so don't gotta worry about that. But fair play to the Yeti, it does have a thread on it on the bottom that is standard. Okay, so a lot of what I just mentioned to a lot of people is just fluff. It's like extra stuff that you're expected to buy or is just a nice bonus when it comes in the package. What people care about with microphones is the sound quality. So how does the Beecaster sound versus the Yeti? We already did King Bee versus Yeti, so let's talk about the Beecaster versus the Yeti. Again, like I mentioned, I don't have one to test, so I can't do my fun test. But there is something I can do, and it's just on Neat's website. Apparently, they just have audio samples from all of their microphones that you can listen to, like vocals, instruments, everything, which is great. I've never seen any other microphone company do that. Maybe that's a standard thing that I just don't know about. Back when I used to buy a lot of microphones, I would have to go on YouTube and look up reviews like this one to see how mics sounded. And that was fine. That was a fine process, but to see it coming directly from the company, that's great. Anyway, if we're gonna do like an equation here to equate the King Bee being better than the Yeti, we might as well just compare the King Bee to the Beecaster to see if they're much different in their sound signature. Honestly, that's probably a very similar capsule inside the microphone, and listening to the mics, I could confirm that they sound pretty much the same. The only discernible difference I could hear between the two vocal samples that I listened to were that the Beecaster had a slightly higher noise floor than the King Bee. That could just be like, you know, they forgot to remove the noise, or just a weird malfunction in something, you know, just a write-off thing, like I can't remember the word. Tell me the word. Oh, great bee lord. A fluke. That works. A fluke. It could be a fluke. But regardless, they basically sound the same. So, logic would follow that if the King Bee and the Beecaster sound pretty much the same, and the King Bee sounds better than the Blue Yeti, then the Beecaster sounds better than the Blue Yeti. Algebra. I would love to get my hands on one of these to test the Yeti and the Beecaster more head-to-head, because they do seem to be like direct competitors of each other. Just do like a full thing, all the polar patterns, everything. That would be great. So Chris, if you're watching, buddy, you know where I live. So at the end of the day, whether it be the direct comparison of the Beecaster, that's the same price, if not slightly cheaper in some cases, or the King Bee, which is a little more expensive, if not the same price, with a cheap audio interface, Neat seems to have Blue beat here. Alright, the ATR 2100, the golden boy of my Yeti video, which, honestly, I didn't really make my points super clear for why it was my, like, best choice for the Yeti, like, to buy over the Yeti in that video. My points being that I think the modularity of both having an XLR and a USB port, and it being half the cost, those were my points. I don't know if I hit those home that much, but I could have made a better argument. But anyway, the 2100 versus the Yeti is not the point of this video, so let's talk about the King Bee versus the 2100. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway, because bees don't care what humans think is impossible. As evidenced by those audio clips, the 2100 is way noisier than the King Bee, which is to be expected from a $60 microphone. And you can alleviate some of those concerns with some noise reduction and EQ, so take a listen. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. But yeah, I still think the King Bee is on top here, just because of the lower noise floor just inherently, and it's very clearly got way more range and is way more clear than the 2100. So yeah, honestly, this mic kind of soured my opinion on the ATR 2100, and that's mostly because I feel like I fell in love with the 2100 years ago when a $60 mic sounding that good was crazy, but now we have a $100 mic like way outperforming it. Like, just price performance is just crazy on this microphone, which I will continue to talk about throughout this video. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I don't like the 2100 anymore. Now, I still do think that the 2100 is good in its price range. Honestly, I think it could go down a little. There probably are some $40 microphones that outperform the 2100 at this point, just because technology has evolved. But again, like the USB and the XLR and the headphone out on it, there's not a lot of microphones that cover all those bases, and also sound pretty good and are lightweight and cheap. So, I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about this comparison. I just included it because I talked about it a lot in the Yeti video, and it is a similar price point microphone that you might see on Amazon or wherever you're shopping when it comes up, and just, you know, you might want to consider it. Similar thing, I'm sure people use this for podcasting. People basically exclusively use the 2100 for podcasting and interviews and stuff. So yeah, it's a similar mic. I don't really have much else to say. However, what I do have a lot to say about, and what really fucks me up about this entire video, is this next and final mic that I will be comparing to the King Bee. Alright, This is gonna hurt a little bit. This mic, the Rode NT5, has been my go-to mic for just good quality audio for years now, since I bought 2 of them like a century and a half ago. I pretty much know if I just set this thing up and point it in the correct direction, I am going to get usable, if not great sounding audio. If not with a little EQ in post, which my theory on why I pretty much always have to EQ this microphone in post is because it delivers a really flat signal due to it being made for instrument recording, like getting really close up to instruments and just recording those as flat as possible. It's not really meant for vocals specifically, like this mic and pretty much the rest of the mics in this video are made for. But it gets the job done, and I like it. It's really nice. But here's the part that blew me away. Take a listen to these audio clips. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway. Because bees don't care what humans think is impossible. You just heard this mic, the King Bee, which is $100, very clearly outperform the Rode NT5, which usually clocks in at around $220. That's over twice the price of this thing. That hurt my head. That hurt me when I first listened to that. Now, the story does change when I introduce that EQing process that I mentioned just a second ago. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway. Because bees don't care what humans think is impossible. Now you start to see what I mean about the NT5 delivering a flat signal that is supposed to be EQ'd in post, and at this point this made me feel a lot better, because after applying my usual EQ, I do think that the NT5 sounds massively better than the King Bee, but that might just be bias because I'm so used to that sound signature and my voice going through it in that specific EQ, but hey, you decide. I still think that the NT5 outperforms the King Bee here after some EQ, but this does lead me into my next point, because I didn't EQ the King Bee that much there. I didn't really change the sound signature of it at all. The NT5 had to be EQ'd, so what's the deal there? Let's take a hop in the audio department over to headphones. You know how a lot of people hate Beats? You know, the Beats headphones? For being really fucking bassy, like way too bassy, to the point where you can't hear mid-range and just most of the audio in your music. It's not very clear, it's just all bass, and some people like that, but most of the time that's not great. I think a similar thing is going on with the King Bee here, but in a very positive way. Don't get me wrong, I just shat on Beats, but it works for the King Bee, and here's why. The NT5 delivers a flat signal, which at a $200 price point is fine. You're pretty much expected to have to do some EQ to it, and because it's designed for instruments, you might not even have to. You might not want to, but it is there for you to play around with in post because you want a more clear, more usable signal that you can fuck with in post to make sound however you want. It's the same shit with film production. You film in a flat profile so that you have a lot more room in post for color grading. There's a lot more detail in the image than if you're post-processing it in the camera, I guess it wouldn't be post-processing, just processing the image in the camera as opposed to doing it in post-production. It's the same shit. You get a lot more data, and you're able to mess with it a lot in post. But you don't always have time for post-production, or there just isn't post-production, and that's where stuff like the King Bee and what I'm doing right now, where I am just using a video profile that I like on my camera. I'm not filming flat. I almost never film flat for these videos because I don't want to spend hours and a lot of precious computing power to color grade my footage. And I think the King Bee hits on a similar point there, where at $100 it is cheap. You're probably targeting the prosumer market who might not even know how to process audio. I didn't. I still really don't. And especially for people like streamers, you know, there are ways to EQ a microphone, like live streaming it, but like I mentioned earlier, unless you're doing it through a hardware method, which gets really expensive really fast, and is also just super confusing, to me, I'm an idiot, remember? You're sacrificing a lot of processing power on your computer's end if you're doing it through a software thing that's live. And again, that's a hot commodity, especially when it comes to streaming. You drop frames, people will call you a dummy, and they'll throw a bunch of funny emotes in the chat. Flat profiles or signals are not always necessary, is what I'm trying to say, and I think that is kind of the point of this mic. It's a more rich, bassier sound out of the box, which is not always good for a lot of use cases, especially for different voices and stuff, but that's... mics and cameras and everything have always been tools that do a specific job, and especially with mics, everyone's voice is different. Everyone's voice is going to sound different on every different mic. So if you get a mic that is super bassy out of the box and you have like a really deep, like bassy voice, that's not, you probably don't want that mic. You probably want a more flat mic that will deliver you a more actual representation of what you sound like, which, you know, those are usually more expensive. Talking about the NT5 again, a $200 mic, which delivers a pretty flat signal, versus King B, which is obviously tuned in some way. I'm saying a lot of good things about the King B versus the NT5, but I do want to be clear here. I still think that the Rode NT5 outperforms the King B and is just more versatile in general. For example, like, I use the NT5 out of frame a lot. There's a reason that the King B is in frame right now. I'm showing it off, so I probably would have had it in frame anyway, and it's a nice looking microphone, but if I get far away from it, it performs not as good. It performs worse than the NT5 if it's like far away and out of frame. The NT5 is not designed for that, but it just does it better than the King B. But again, if we're talking just strict price to performance at over half the cost, the King B it just bats way out of its league. If we're just talking price to performance, this thing is crazy. So where does all that leave us? Basically, with a really damn good deal. Like, this mic is great. It comes in at $100, comes with all that fancy shit that I talked about earlier, the shock mount, the pop filter, the nice packaging. It's just great. And I didn't even mention that the manual is themed like a field guide, complete with a PSA about the declining population of honeybees. It's great. It's so cute. And again, there's this guy who's great. This mic rocks. I don't know what else to say. I feel like a shill, but it's a good mic. Again, I'm not being paid or endorsed in any way for that. They just sent me the mic. I didn't even think I was going to make a video on it. But here we are. This mic gets a B for, boy, does it sound good. What if I flew away? Buzz.